Otis Redding was known as the King of Soul. So Otis Redding sadly passed away on December 10th, 1967 due to a plane crash. But he leaves behind a legacy that is great and is kept alive through his music, through his family, through his fans. We're going to look into who the King of Soul was, from his birth to his upbringing to his success story. Otis Redding was born on September 9th, 1941 in Dawson, Georgia. His family moved to Macon, Georgia when he was a few years old. So Otis is a junior. His father is known as Reverend Otis Redding Sr., who was a Baptist minister, but he also worked full-time. So he worked as a sharecropper. He worked for the Robins Air Force Base located in Macon, Georgia, which was one of the only places that African Americans could work at the time. So a tidbit to know is that Otis Redding Sr. passed away on April 28th, 1968, which is a little bit more than 4 months after Otis passed away in the plane crash. His mother was Fannie Roseman Redding, and she died on April 30th, 1989 in Georgia. So his parents are buried together in Macon, Georgia. So at an early age, Otis sang in the Vineville Baptist Church choir, and he also learned guitar and piano. So from the age of 10, Otis took drum and singing lessons. Otis sang in the school band at Ballard Hudson High School. And every Sunday, Otis earned $6 by performing gospel songs for Macon's radio station, WIBB. Otis admired Little Richard and Sam Cooke and said that he would not be in the music without Little Richard, saying he entered the business because of him, often used his style of music in his future songs. Otis dropped out of school when he was 15 years old to support his family due to his father contracting tuberculosis and being hospitalized, which left his mother to be the main breadwinner. So some of the jobs that Otis did while he was helping his family out he was a gas station attendant, a well digger, and occasionally a musician to help his family. Otis often played piano at Hillview Springs Social Club with pianist Gladys Williams and her band, who were well known in Macon. Gladys, who inspired Otis greatly, hosted Sunday talent shows which Otis attended with two of his friends, singers Little Willie Jones and Eddie Ross. He also performed in talent shows at Macon's Douglas Theater. Otis' breakthrough came in 1958 when disc jockey Hemp Swine's The Teenage Party, which was a talent show at the local Roxy and Douglas Theater. So at the talent show, Otis was getting ready to perform, and Johnny Jenkins, a local prominent guitarist, was in the audience and found that Otis' band was lacking somewhat in musical skills, so he offered to accompany him. Otis sang Heebie Jeebies. The combination with Johnny allowed Otis to win Swine's talent contest for 15 consecutive weeks, which was $5 in cash prizes every week. So after the 15th week, when Otis showed up to perform in a talent show, he was told that he had done his maximum times and, just wanted to give a chance for someone else to win the contest. So that was over. But no worries. Jenkins and Otis would later on reunite again, where Jenkins would play his guitar for several gigs with Otis. So in the 1950s, the Upsetters hired Otis. So Little Richard ended up abandoning the group because he abandoned rock and roll in favor of gospel music. Otis was well paid for working with the Upsetters, making $25 a gig, but it did not last long because Otis had bigger dreams and he wanted so much more. Otis met Zelma Atwood in 1959 and they married in 1961. Their marriage produced 3 children, Dexter, Carla, and Otis III. Otis was soon invited to replace Willie Jones as frontman of Pat T. Cake and the Mighty Panthers, featuring Johnny Jenkins. As a member of Pat T. Cake and the Mighty Panthers, Otis toured the southern U.S. on the Chitlin circuit. Otis left Pat T. Cake and the Mighty Panthers to become the feature artist with the Pine Stoppers. So Otis joined Johnny Jenkins' band, the Pine Stoppers, where he toured the southern states with the band as a singer and driver. In 1960, Otis moved to Los Angeles with his sister Deborah, while his wife Zelma and children stayed in Macon, Georgia. In LA, Otis recorded his first songs, Tough Enough, written by James McEachin, She's Alright, written by James McEachin, and two songs that Otis wrote, I'm Getting Hip and Gamma Llama. Otis met Phil Walden, the future founder of Phil Walden Associates, and later Bobby Smith, who ran the small label Confederate Records. Otis signed Confederate Records. He recorded a single, Shock Bama Lama, which was a rewrite of the song Gamma Llama and Fat Girl together with his band Otis and the Shooters. Otis drove Jenkins to a session at Stax in Memphis. The session was backed by Booker T and the MGs, but was unproductive and ended early. Otis was allowed to record two songs. The first song was Hey Hey Baby, which studio exec Jim Stewart said sounded too much like Little Richard. The second song was These Arms of Mine, featuring Jenkins on the guitar and Steve Cropper on the piano. There was something different about this ballad. It felt like Otis poured his soul into it. So from that session, Jim Stewart signed Otis and released These Arms of Mine with Hey Hey Baby on the B-side. The single was released by vote in October 1962 and charted in March the following year, becoming one of his most successful songs, selling more than 800,000 copies. So the albums that Otis Redding made that came out while he was still living included in 1964, Pain in My Heart, which had four successful singles, including These Arms of Mine, Pain in My Heart, That's What My Heart Needs, and Security. So in 1965, the album The Great Otis Redding Sings Soul Ballads came out. And then later on that year, one of Otis's better albums, Otis Blue, Otis Redding Sings Soul, and that included the singles Respect and I've Been Loving You Too Long. He did another album in 1966, the Soul album, and later on in 1966, another album called Complete and Unbelievable, the Otis Redding Dictionary of Soul, including hit Try a Little Tenderness. He also made an album in 1967 with label mate Carla Thomas, and the album was titled King and Queen. And I know one of the singles up there was a single called Tramp. So Otis was known for his magnetic singing voice, which was very powerful and full of emotion. So much emotion poured out when he sang that people just fell in love with his music and fell in love with his voice. So you could imagine while Otis was putting out these albums, he was becoming a bigger and bigger star, which meant he was beginning to earn more money. So with that money, one of the things he did was purchase the Big O Ranch in Round Oak, Georgia. And of course, the ranch is named after him. So as Otis' career continued to skyrocket, so did his heart, and it wanted to give back to the community. So he was determined to ensure that children stayed in school and ultimately be educated through music. So while becoming a star in the music business, Otis was a philanthropist in Macon, staging fundraisers and working in other ways to make sure children there stayed in school instead of dropping out, as he had to do. Otis was dedicated to improve the quality of life of his community through education and empowerment of youth. He awarded several scholarships to youth to continue their education. In 1967, Otis even made a song about kids in school. The song was called Stay in School. So as Otis became a bigger star, he performed in small towns in the South. He also performed at Whiskey a Go-Go in LA. Then he went to Europe, performing in London, Paris, and other major cities, as well as some of his label mates. They all went overseas to Europe and just toured and engaged with people, and they loved the engagement. It was so different from what they experienced in the U.S. due to the times that they were in. So another big performance that Otis did was the Monterey Pop Festival, and that was a huge success. It helped Otis officially cross over to music loved by all, and he performed that in June of 1967. Otis actually did have surgery in 1967 as well, so in October of 1967, Otis had his polyps removed from his vocal cords, and it did force him to take some downtime, but he got to spend that downtime with his wife and kids. Inspiration hit Otis big when he heard the Beatles album that was done in 1967 called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So after listening to the album, Otis went to work on creating more music that was different from the music they had been making. He wanted a different sound. He just wanted to expand and just make music that was great. So out of this inspiration came the hit song Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, which was written by Steve Cropper. The song was recorded only a few days before Otis' untimely death. Tragedy struck Otis at the height of his career. On December 10th, 1967, Otis was en route to a concert in Madison, Wisconsin, when the private Beechcraft H-18 plane he recently purchased crashed into the freezing waters of Lake Montana. The weather was poor that day, with fog and heavy rain, and the group had been warned to not fly in such heavy weather. But Otis was a perfectionist. He did not want to miss a day of a scheduled performance because he wanted to keep his word and he wanted to continue making music and sharing that music with everyone. So Otis, his pilot, his valet, and then most of the members of the Barkays, which was a group he had found to play as his band while he went touring, most of them did pass away. So the one person that did live was Ben Colley. So he was able to survive through holding on to a seat cushion. So Ben Colley, he said he did remember being asleep and suddenly waking up before the impact to hear fellow bandmate Philin Jones say, "Oh no." The next thing Ben said he remembered was unbuckling his seatbelt, and then he was in frigid water grasping a seat cushion to stay afloat. He said he couldn't swim, so he could not save others. Now, they also said that Ben heard two others screaming for help while he was holding that seat cushion, but he couldn't help him because he couldn't swim. So sadly, after a while, that screaming did stop. Now, they did not find Otis on the day of the crash. They had to go out another day to find him the next day. And that's when they found Otis, and it looks like Otis was still strapped into his seat when the plane crashed. So the people that passed with Otis that day included Ronnie Caldwell, Carl Cunningham, Philin Jones, and Jamie King. They all perished that day with Otis. Another bandmate who was supposed to be with them on the plane, but it was not enough room, was bassist James Alexander, who was instructed to wait at the airport by the pilot and he would come back and get him once he had dropped the team off in Wisconsin, but he never made it back because a plane crashed. So the Barkays was reconstructed years later with James Alexander and Ben Cully, who greatly missed their former bandmates. So it hurts even more that the group was just out of high school and they were just enjoying life and just happy that they were getting to tour with someone as great as Otis Redding. Otis's funeral was postponed from December 15th till December 18th to allow more people to attend the funeral. Their service was held at City Auditorium in Macon, Georgia, and more than 4,500 people attended, which was well over the limit of 3,000 for the auditorium. Jerry Wexler ended up delivering the eulogy for Otis's funeral, and Otis was entombed in his ranch in Round Oak, Georgia, which is about 20 miles north of Macon, and we all know that's the big old ranch. Otis was survived by his wife, Selma, and children, and he just leaves behind his amazing legacy. He was, like I said, the king of soul, and the honor was given to him by James Brown and Sam Cooke. And he was the heart and soul of Stax music. So some of Otis's posthumous accolades include Grammy Awards, the 1999 Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. He was inducted into the Georgia Music Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989. He was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame, the actual Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is a very great honor. The U.S. Postal Service also issued a commemorative postage stamp in his honor as well. So his legacy continues to live through his family and fans. His wife, Zalma, continued as a family matriarch after his death. And she continued his legacy by setting up Otis Redding Foundation and managing business functions. So today, Zelma and Otis's remaining children continue to keep his legacy alive, including the foundation in his name and the Otis Redding Center for Arts, which was opened in March 2025. So Otis left a lasting legacy through his music, through his kindness, and through his soul. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking the video as well as subscribing to my channel. And please leave a comment. Did you know who Otis Redding was previous to this video? What do you know about Otis Redding? Do you have any personal stories? And how do you feel about soul music? I want to say thank you so much for watching this video and enjoy your day. Thank you.